Hello everyone, it's Kim. I wanted to show you what I was able to render down yesterday from that beef fat that I had. You could see I got this great big bowl full plus this pan full. Now this is not been completely clarified yet because I just wanted to get the excess out. So what I did was I put it in a strainer and then let it go into the jar just to get the extra bits out. But this is that's all the leftovers I have right there. So that out of that huge bag of fat that I had, this is it. Now honestly, if I wanted, I could cook this down into more like cracklins and use that later, but I don't want to do that process right now. I'm going to put it in a bag and save it. I'm thinking of using some of that in some dog food I want to make. I have some old venison that got a little freezer burn, and it needs a little added fat that I'm thinking of making up for my dogs, but that's another day. So anyway, I was asked what I use to filter my fat with, and what I use is one of these reusable coffee filters. They are a very fine mesh, as you can see. No particles really get through there. And what I do is I set it in my colander. That's the only colander I have. And I just hold it over the bowl and let it strain in, as it's draining. But that, I think I did pretty darn good for the amount of fat that I have. Now the next step, I'm going to tell you up front, this is how I do it. You do not have to do it this way. Please do your own research. I put mine in jars. I leave them on the shelf. I do not water bath. I do not pressure can. I've done it with lard for years, and from everything I read, I did extensive reading on the internet. You buy lard in plastic buckets. It's shelf stable. It has to be absolutely clean, and there can be absolutely no water in the fat, or you could get mold problems. So that's my next step. I need to remelt this and this. I probably have to do it in batches. And once that's remelted, what I do is I put my jars in the oven at 200, just about 250 degrees, because you never put a hot liquid into a cold jar. And once I get to that step, I'll tell you. But I'm just telling you, if you do this on your own, do your own research. Don't come back and say, hey, all my stuff molded. Please do your own research. This is how I do it for me, and I feel safe doing it this way. Anyway, the next step, I will be back in just a little while. Okay, I have my tallow in there in the crock pot, ready to melt down. In the meantime, I take my lids and I wash them in soapy water just for a minute, rinse them well, dry them, because again, you do not want any water on them when you go to use them. And I have my jars ready to go. They're going to go in the oven. Now I really prefer these straight-sided jars. It just makes getting the lard or the tallow out much easier. But I always put in a lot more than I think I'm going to use, because what I do is I put them in a cold oven and then I turn it on. I don't want to put a cold jar in a hot oven because it could shock it, and later when you go to use them, they could crack and things like that. So I have, what do I have here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I don't think I'm going to use all 10, but I have 10 jars ready to go just in case. So that's the next step until I get ready to actually put them in the jars. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to try to do this kind of quick because I only have a window air conditioner. It's starting to get pretty hot in here. Anyway, I have my jars. My lids were washed and dried. Now, I wash my lids because I don't know if they have any kind of machine oil on them or other people have touched them, anything like that. It's not to make them sterile. It's just to make sure that they're clean from, other people, stuff like that. So I'm going to take just a couple of jars at a time because I want them to stay warm. And I'm going to set them out here. I'm going to start with like 4 or 5. Because again, you want them, the liquid or the fat to go inside. You want as close to the jar temperature as possible. They don't have to be equal, but you do not want cold jars. Okay? The next bit is pretty simple. I'm just going to take my funnel with my filter. Whoop, told you they were hot. And I'm going to fill the jars. I go up just about to a 1/4 inch from the top. You don't have to worry. I'm not processing these otherwise, so I get them pretty close to the top here. About. Sometimes it's hard to see that last little bit. Okay. I actually have so much I may have to put some additional jars in there. It's much more than I thought, which is really great. I'm just going to ladle it in, obviously through my filter. Don't want to get it too close. Now, you see I've dripped all over the edges. That could be a problem for your seals. And I'll show you how to deal with that here in a second. As soon as I get these jars all filled. You can see I have a few little impurities left. That's why I have the filter. Try not to make a mess. Ooh, that's full. I'm sorry if I'm out of view. I'm doing a jar over here in the back. I don't want to touch them and get myself burned. Ooh, that one might be a little full. Yee. Nope, good. Oh, I did it again, darn it. Oh, don't overflow. Please don't overflow. Good. All right. So I know it sounds silly, but what I do is I just take this and I hang it up on my rack. I have a rack right back here. Excuse me. I'm losing my voice a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to put the next batch of, this is the last of the fat. I'm going to throw it in here. Let it melt while it's still hot. And now I can look and see if I want to top up any of the jars. And I do have a couple. So I'm going to do that just with, I should have done that before I put that fat in there, but it shouldn't cool it down too much. Just got a couple I want to add just a little bit. I'm not worried about any impurities because I skimmed it from an area I don't see any. If you are, then you could, if you're worried about, you know, if you have any impurities in there still, you can run it through your filter first. So, all right, that's good enough for me. Now, the absolute most important step. First thing I'm going to do is take a paper towel. I'm going to wipe off any excess grease. Okay, off of, oh, stick it in there. That doesn't help, does it? This is the only step I worry about, because if I spill this now, I could burn myself, my dogs, you know, it's going to make a huge mess. So try not to rush. Don't do this when you're in a rush. Take your time. I'm going to move that one a little bit so I get a better grip. And wipe off as much grease as you can. Now you want to go back with a paper towel that has vinegar on it. I'm going to soak this in vinegar. Oop, a little much, but too much than too little. And once again, I'm really going to make sure these are absolutely as clean as possible. I don't want any speck of grease, if at all possible, on the rims. I guess between making sure there's absolutely no liquid in it, no particles. Wiping your rims is super important because you want these to seal. I'm not canning these. I'm not water bathing them. Like I said, I've read many websites. It's up to you to do what you feel comfortable doing. I'm comfortable with this. I'm not telling you to do it this way. I'm showing how I do it, okay? If you're the canning police, yes, I get it. Don't tell me I'm going to poison the world because, you know, this is how manufacturers do it. They put them in plastic buckets and just put a lid on it, for goodness sake. All right, my lids go on. And my screw bands. All right, I need something to grip it with because I don't want to burn myself. I put mine on pretty tight, not like crank it down, but probably a little more than what you would call finger tight. I go finger tight and then just a little bit of an extra turn. All right. Now the way my grandma used to do it, she used to flip them upside down to get the lids hot. I'm not so sure I want to do that. I would not risk getting the lids hot. Let's try it with this one. We'll see how it works. I know it's to get the lids hot. Make sure that, you know, that sterilizes the lid. I think the lids are hot just from the liquid itself, but we're going to do this one. Then she used to flip it back over, and that's that. That's how I do my lard, and this is tallow. Again, I like the straight-sided jars. It's a little easier to get it out. You don't have to worry about trying to pick it out under the rim. But when you go to use it, you can always, you know, you get low, you can always zap it in the microwave or put it in a pan of water for a few minutes and let it melt. I'm going to move this one over back here where I know where it's at. And once that melts, I'm going to do my next set, and I'll show you how many I got when I'm all done. They are all jarred up. Looks like I got a little over a gallon, right? 2 pints to the quart, 4 quarts to the gallon, something like that. Yeah. So it looks like I got just over a gallon. Oh, look at their pinging. And this is all I had left out of that huge pile. And honestly, I could render it down a little bit more, but I'm not going to. Like I said, I'm going to add that to some dog food. That's it. I will show you what it looks like when it's all cooled off. They should be creamy white in those jars. And, you know, for something that most people throw away, I think I did pretty good. What do you think? All right, one last look. It's not completely cool because I have to let it go overnight, but this is my tallow, and I weighed it out without the jars and the rings. I put, you know, the appropriate size on there and subtracted them. I have 5.5 pounds of tallow, which happens to be 88 ounces. And I looked on Amazon to see what it would cost for tallow. The cheapest one I could find was $10.99 for 11 ounces or $1 per ounce. So I have $88 worth of home canned tallow. That makes it seem amazing to me that this is something a lot of people throw away and go out and buy. So I figured my time was worth the $88. Anyway, what do you think? Is this something that you would consider doing if you knew it was worth $88 and a few minutes of your time every couple hours? Oh, by the way, before I forget, the rings will come off tomorrow. They all pinged, but I wait 24 hours to take my rings off. Of course, they will all be labeled with tallow and the year on it, the month and the year. So Anyway, let me know what you think. Have a great day, everybody.